I've heard a lot of stories over the years, and I've seen a lot of unfortunate situations, and it's never destitute. You're never completely destitute. There's always a way out. There's always a way to rebuild. There's always a way to get back on top. So don't ever give up hope, no matter where you're at. You know, if you got good credit, great. Let's go use that credit. Let's go do some awesome stuff. If you don't have credit, great. Let's go do some stuff also.
Yeah.
All right, welcome back to part 2. I'm Jason Andrus.
Colter Hansen, nice to be here.
I say part 2 we just talked about credit. Now we're going to talk about, do you need credit to do real estate?
What I found is no.
No.
Yes,
all right.
You actually do not always need credit.
So let's go through a few of those things because a lot of people think, I've got to have money, I've got to have credit. And you really don't. I mean, you need money and you need credit, but it doesn't have to be your credit. It doesn't have to be your money. So let's talk about that.
So here are some of the methods that you can use, whether it's your credit, other people's credit, or other people's money to be able to buy property. And one of those is you can buy property with hard money, which is...
So what is hard money?
Hard money is, I mean, I've seen recent terms of, hey, you know what, I pay between 2 and 5% of the total transaction to initiate the loan, and then between 10 and 18% interest.
And what do they call that initial 2 to 5%?
They call it points.
Points, yep. Just so everybody kind of knows, everybody says, oh, I want 3 points and something interest, then at least you know what they're talking about.
Yeah. So you can buy it with hard money, and then you can refinance if you want to hold on to the property, or you can just turn around and flip it and you can make your spread. Another would be a contract for deed. What's contract for deed or executive contract?
You can cover that one. I've never done one.
Okay.
Yeah, cover that one.
All right, so...
I know it, but you'd probably be able to explain a little better.
So an executive contract or contract for deed is that there's enough things underlying in, the debt obligations or the encumbrances on that property, is that you want to leave everything in place until you can come in with external financing to wipe all of those out. It does a couple of things. One is it buys you time. You don't necessarily have to close on the property, but it secures the property to where you have control as to when you close according to a set line items of terms.
Okay.
So it's very similar to like a subject to deal.
Yeah.
It's just that you're deferring when you actually close on that property. It's saying, I'm going to buy this property, let's say for $100,000 under all of these underlying terms. Here's the purchase and sales agreement. Here's the estimated HUD statement. And
so that's all in the contract.
It's all in the contract.
And then when you perform on that contract, then you get the deed.
Then you get the actual deed. But in the meantime, according to your terms in your executive contract or your contract for deed, you can actually take control of the property as if you owned it. You can fix it up, you can do whatever else, which it has its risks to it.
Yeah.
Because you haven't closed on the property yet. And if you're going to go dump $50,000 into improving a place, you want to make sure your contract is solid, as we do in all of our agreements.
Definitely.
But it allows for you to control it, know that you have something secured, and 6, 12, sometimes 36 months later, you can actually close on that deal based on these set number of terms to where you've locked a property in and you know that it can be yours according to those terms.
That's awesome. You did a good job. Better job than I could have explained that. I knew it, but you did a great job. So let's take that a little bit further. So if you get a contract for deed, you get all these terms inside that contract, you're going to fulfill all those things. Maybe part of that is you have to bring some money in. What if you don't have any money?
Well, there's a couple of different methods. One is you can say, hey, you know what? If I'm ready to close on that property, I can use hard money. Mm-hmm. And hard money is the points plus interest. Or I can use private money, and you can also pay points plus interest. Typically, private money is a little bit cheaper. Maybe it's mom and dad or grandma or grandpa or aunt or uncle or brother or sister.
I always tell people the difference between private money and hard money is the private money doesn't know they're hard money. Because people that have hard money, they're out there lending, they're proud of it. So it's private money, and that could be private money from, like you said, a friend, a relative, brother, sister, but it could also just be a partner. That could be some of your private money. Maybe you're like, hey, look, I just found this property. I just got this all under contract. We're going to do contract for deed. And now I need some money to make this thing happen. And you bring a partner in. That's another way that you can buy something without using your own credit.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So we've outlined, what have we outlined? Hard money, private money, contract for deed, executive contract. Another would be like wraparound, subject to, seller carries.
Yeah, seller carries are great. And those three are kind of similar, but just a little bit different. A subject to, seller carry, and what was the other one you said?
Wraparound.
Wraparound. It's kind of the same, but they're all just a little bit different. But they all are a strategy that you can use without using your own credit, without using your own money. So what we're talking about is what you can leverage is your knowledge. I think that's what people, I really consider knowledge and talent an asset. I really do, because if you have the knowledge to be able to do a subject to perform, or to do a seller carry, or I can't remember the other one again. Seller carry, subject to, wraparound. Okay, and wraparound. If you can have those three, and you know how to execute those, and you tie one up, or you've got one that might be a candidate, then it's real easy to find other people that can come in and say, "Hey, I've got this tied up, but I need a credit partner, or I need some money," and so you partner with them, or you just create them to lend you the money, private money or hard money.
So we've talked about all these methods. There's so many great ways of being able to approach a deal. How do I pick one over another? Like, what are the scenarios that say, hey, this is the way I do it this time? Is there a cookie cutter way to do real estate?
No, and that's why it's so important to get as much knowledge as you can, because sometimes I go into a property that I think is going to be a good seller carry, but then I find out, oh, you know what, they're in foreclosure, or I find out something else, and I'm like, you know what, this may be a better subject too. Or we get into it and you're like, man, like the one you did the other day, you did a few scenarios. You're like, you know what, you'd be better off just to keep this property. So the great thing about get as much knowledge as you can, knowing about all the different ways to take down a deal, is each time you go into a deal, it may be, hey, this is going to be a classic whatever strategy, but you get into it and you're like, nah, that's not going to work. It's going to be better for them and better for you to maybe do a different strategy.
Yeah, and I really like to look at all of these strategies as just having a number of tools in your tool belt.
Yeah.
Right?
You may go into a project that you need a Phillips head screwdriver, and it changes to a standard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you can slip off in a flathead, and it can scratch the paint, and you can be really pissed off, and it's just like, oh, dang.
Yep, exactly.
That happened to my airplane the other day.
Oh,
I
no.
was so mad at the mechanic. I didn't know. Anyway, so speaking of, but yeah, we're putting back on, it's called the cowling, and there's this one screw, and like it just
and it's a standard, it's flat?
It was a flathead, right? And the rest of the screws are actually, they're Phillips, but this one has been replaced, and you can tell like there's little scratches around, and he was working this thing in, and he just went wham, and it went, it was scratched like that long. So you know what? Sometimes you use the wrong tool, and it scratches the paint, and you're mad.
It's true. So you regroup, and you may have to retool, right?
Yeah, and you really do. And I think, so coming back to the analogy now that I've distracted a squirrel, right? Your Phillips head screwdriver, your flathead, your hammer, whatever it may be. If you have 10 tools in the tool belt to be able to solve the problem, you're likely to be able to get something done. If you only have one strategy, one tool to approach every single deal, you're limiting yourself on the number of deals that you can get done.
Yeah, I went into a deal where I thought it was going to be just a regular classic foreclosure, and so I was thinking it was going to be a subject to. And once we got into it, I'm like, man, the best thing, I had to change because I didn't realize that the property was in probate, that their dad actually owned the house, never did a will, and so it's in the middle of probate. And at that time, I didn't even know I knew the term, but I had no idea how to do it. So I told the people, I'm like, yeah, I can figure this out. No problem at all. And I left there on good terms, positive, and then I went home and I watched the probate class twice. And I came back 2 days later with the documentation. I'm like, all right, we can make this happen. And he's like, man, I'm so glad. When you left, I didn't know for sure, but it looks like you know what you're doing. I'm like, you bet I do. And that's why it's so important. I think sometimes people, they don't realize how important knowledge is and experience and being able to help more people out. I really think that's what it's all about. That's one of the things we talked about at that mastermind. Hopefully you listened to the last one and you're listening to this one too, but it's all about having the appropriate knowledge, the appropriate tools, the appropriate strategies to make it a win-win for everybody. Because sometimes it might be a bigger win for you to do one strategy, but I always go back to, I want it to be a win-win for both. Mm-hmm. Because, and here's the thing I talked about the other day, is there's sometimes I get into a deal and it may not be a win at all, and I walk away. So I asked them and I said, hey, do you know anybody else that might be in your situation or maybe needing to sell their home, or maybe in foreclosure. And it's funny, I mean, probably 50% of the time they're like, yeah, my brother actually just called me, or maybe nobody at that point. I give them a card, they put a magnet, one of those sticky magnets you can get from Staples, they put it on the fridge and say, if you ever run into anybody that may not be able to make their payments, maybe in some kind of a hardship, lost their job, need to sell their home, give me a call. And it's amazing how many times I get a call, hey, do you remember me? And my friend just was talking to me and they want to meet with you. So you always leave on good terms, make it a win-win, because I really feel good. You do good and you be good, good's gonna come back.
Yeah, the law of reciprocity.
Yeah, it's so true.
And it's so true. Like, I love those phone calls like, hey, you took care of me a couple of years ago. I appreciate that. Now I want you to take care of my friend.
Yes.
Like that goes so far. And, I feel like over the last decade or so, I've been able to collect those types of friends that are just like, hey, you know what? I know somebody that can use your knowledge.
Yeah.
And actually, and I don't consider myself a cryptocurrency expert, but I had, he's actually pretty high up at a credit union, and he consults high net worth people, and he had somebody that needed to transfer several $100,000 worth of value in cryptocurrencies, and he calls me and says, Colter, I've got this thing, I need your help on it. Hey, can you answer X and Y, Z questions, and what would you recommend?
Yeah.
And, I think just putting yourself out there is like, hey, you know what, I can help solve problems, and I've dabbled in this, or I've created this value, and I've done this well, and, and also admit like, hey, you know what, I'm human, I'm making mistakes, but I'm trying real hard and doing a good job.
What's great about the scenario is you probably didn't make any money off that.
None.
But what's great is whoever hired you and the guy you answered questions for, they're going to know your name. And if they ever need anything or ever think, you know what, that guy treated me pretty good. I wonder if he'd be interested in this opportunity or maybe partner with me on some kind of a deal. It's amazing how many times those things come back to you.
Yeah, no, it really is. So, I mean, giving has its opportunities to receive in return. And so when you give good, you get good in return.
Yeah. So having good credit's good, right?
It is good.
Having bad credit is not the end of the world. Right?
No, it isn't.
It's not. So if you don't have good credit, there's ways to make your credit better. If you have bad credit or you don't have credit at all, there's still ways to get your credit and there's ways to make money without it. And so never ever think your situation, well, maybe they can do it, but they don't know me. They don't know my situation. They don't know my story. I've heard a lot of stories over the years and I've seen a lot of unfortunate situations, and it's never destitute. You're never completely destitute. There's always a way out. There's always a way to rebuild. There's always a way to get back on top. So don't ever give up hope, no matter where you're at. If you got good credit, great. Let's go use that credit. Let's go do some awesome stuff. If you don't have credit, great. Let's go do some stuff also.
Yeah, no, you just gotta go for it, right? I mean, go for it, try to learn something in the process, learn as much as you can in the process, and then ask experts, ask people that have done it before, look to those mentors, people that, have an idea. We would love to, help be those mentors.
Definitely.
Again, message us, reach out to us, and at the end of the day, if we can help direct you down a path that it helps you achieve what you're looking to achieve, that's what we hope to do.
That's what it's all about. It really is.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think it was a good episode.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.